Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. Hello, I'm Iris Acker, and I'm hosting this evening. Let's meet our panel. First up, our award-winning actress, Karen Stevens. Playwright, Dan Clancy, who's understudying Michael McKeever, who couldn't be here this evening. Bill Hirschman, arts journalist. And our guest today, say hello to Michel Hausmann. He's the artistic director of Miami New Drama at the Colony Theater. Welcome, welcome, Michel.
Pleasure being with you this evening.
Okay, Miami New Drama. Because it's different than other dramas, it's a new drama. I'm fascinated with your choice of title.
Well, absolutely. I think that Miami has the opportunity to create the new work for a changing America. I think that by the year 2050, the United States will be a minority-majority country. And that's something that Miami has been for quite a long time. So I think that we are uniquely positioned to work on the future of America.
And how are you going to do this?
Well, we are doing it. We are doing it by creating work that is not only in conversation with our community, in conversation with what's going on in the country, but as diverse and multicultural as the city itself.
Every single play will be like that.
Every single play has been like that. And not only that, but we are also a minority-majority on stage. Every time you see a show that we do, you will see a stage that looks exactly or looks very similar to what Miami looks like as a city.
You should give it a good example. I think your recent Our Town was a classic example of how your vision has transformed a piece that we've all seen before. Would you talk a little about that?
Absolutely, and I think it's very interesting. I like that production very much. Our production of Our Town was also an experiment on what it is. You know, people tend to think that Our Town is about small town America, which is a mistake, and that's something that Thornton Wilder fought all his life, because that's not what he wrote. He wrote a play about being alive, about what it is like to be on Earth, and what it is like to share in a community. And so kind of our experiment with Our Town was, well, what about if we take this piece of work that so many people think of it as, you know, that time when America was great, right? I mean, I think that, you know, to quote current leaders. And so the question was, well, can this work? Can Our Town work if we reimagine it in a multilingual, multicultural way? And by that, I mean, Our Town is about two families, the Gibbs and the Webbs. What happened if the Webbs would speak Spanish at home, and the Gibbs would speak a mix of Creole and English at home, but everybody else in town would then speak English, some would speak Spanish to each other. So in a way, that Grover's Corners would look like our Miami looked like.
Did your audience accept that?
Well,
do you think they did? I mean, I'm listening to you now. The explanation. Did you give an explanation before?
I don't think that. I think that works that are powerful are works that don't necessarily need an explanation. I think what really excited me was that Thornton Wilder's nephew came to see the show.
Wow.
He gave us the rights. This was the first time that they've ever given the rights for anybody to change, and he said that this was a historical production, one of the best productions of Our Town he has seen in his life. Ooh. And he had seen over 500 productions.
Yes.
The New York Times wrote about it, Theater Mania wrote about it, and it was written really as a way to, in the future of theater. That was very, very interesting, the Theater Mania article about, said about, okay, here's what we've learned from theater you know, on Broadway and off Broadway about what the future of theater could be like. And so we were an example of that. It was like the top 5 things we learned that year. And that was very exciting, because I think that, you know, if maybe locally, you know, we are making noise, what's exciting is that nationally, we are really making also an impact. Yeah. And I also feel that that's very important.
Yeah.
Yes. Venezuela, it has had an impact in everything you're doing. You did theater in Venezuela as well, did you not? Mm-hmm. So the transition to here has not been that much of a transition. In other words, you're thinking the same as you did then.
Well, I think that, you know, when I was working in Venezuela a decade ago or so, it was a politically time, it was a very complicated political time, but every time we did work, even if it was, when I did Fiddler on the Roof, or even if we did like, big known plays, it was always, we always understood that things don't happen in a vacuum and that they have a relationship with society. So when we did Gross Indecency, The Three Trials of Oscar Wilde, suddenly articles were starting written in the newspaper about gay rights and gay marriage. And that idea that theater has the capacity to transform society has been something that stuck with me. And so, then after I went to New York, to Columbia University, had a master's in theater directing, and that really, working with Anne Bogart and with Gregory Mosher, and it really opened up my mind about the possibility of theater. And so I think that it's been an evolution since then, and where I am now as an artist is strongly committed to the idea that we live in a unique community and that it's absurd for us not to take what is unique of this community and transform it into the type of cultural work that can create an earthquake. And that we can, I believe that we have here, we need strong institutions, we have great talent, but we need, to understand that theater is, it's what we exist to be alive, to tell something, to be in conversation with society. Then what are we going to say? And I think that there's so much exciting thing that our unique multicultural community can say, that's where I'm at. I want to keep exploring that.
It's a very passionate explanation.
Yeah, that's great.
I was involved in a lot of new companies in New York City. Some were very successful and some failed. And I think the reason the companies were successful was because they knew their audience. So another question, who is your audience?
I'll answer your question with another question. Who is the theater audience that we have here now? And I think that's the key of what I'm trying to do. Coconut Grove Playhouse had 1,300 seats maybe at the good day. So the Coconut Grove Theater was built in the 1920s, but it was first a movie house. But in the 50s, it's where it became a regional theater. And and by that time, the city was mainly white Anglos. And that theater, those 1,300 seats were for those, for that audience. And in a way, that audience thrived. And at some point, the theater was able, to get the kind of audiences. And if you look now around our theater communities, I think everybody struggles with trying to get an audience. Because I think that white Anglo is now just 11% of the city. And I think that if we only concentrate on those people as theater goers, then of course our theaters are going to continue to grow smaller and smaller. And that's why now maybe the Coconut Grove Playhouse will now have 300 seats because it can't. So my goal, and it's not my goal, there's many people who are doing this type of work, is trying to create a new constituency, a constituency that includes, theater goers that are historical theater goers, and then start talking to different parts of our community that might not necessarily before have been part of the conversation. And so I think that is how we build a new audience. And sometimes we thrive. Golden of Havana spoke about Jews in Cuba. Really brought communities together, and that we sold maybe 8,000 tickets. It was the highest grossing show, perhaps in the recent history of the theater. And sometimes we can't get, it's a hard time getting the house filled.
Yes.
But yeah.
But the thing is, and I think something Dan brought up is very interesting. In the last 10 years, what's happened a great deal is theaters have found a niche audience, and that they have been almost slavishly devoted to an identifiable, not just a mission, but a group of people and a group of interests. Whenever someone has tried to push the edges of the envelope to include other groups, that they haven't done so well. The Actors Playhouse has been trying for 20 years to get a Hispanic audience to come in
But how do you do it?
How do you deal
But how
with
do you do
that?
it in a way that it's not patronizing? I mean, just because you're going to do a production and then in Spanish, it doesn't mean you're really trying to have a conversation with that community. I think that first of all, you do it by. I mean, there's fantastic playwrights from Miami. No, Hispanic players. So Nilo Cruz, Juan Sanchez, Vanessa Garcia. Great people who have great perspective and who are writing about things that are interesting to more than one community. I think that the way to create a larger community is trying to engage those communities in stories that matter to those communities. It's not about advertisement in the right. It's about telling stories that would resonate with them. Why are we so fascinating with New York stories? Why are we doing whatever Manhattan Theater Club did last season here? How does that reflect the uniqueness of who we are as a cultural community? We are, again, 10% wide angles. You know what's also 10% wide angles? South Africa. So just imagine for a second that all theater in South Africa would be wide angles. What would you say? What would you say to that theater community if that's what would be happening? I think that artists, immigrants, and artists of colors, we need to do work for the communities that we resonate with. And if a theater is not going to open the door for us, so we got to do it ourselves, and we got to create our own theaters.
But you have to sell tickets, but you also have to have some kind of backing.
We are the second largest theater now in Miami. Our budget it has surpassed every theater except the Actors Playhouse in just a matter of 2 years. And I think that the response to that is because we found audience that support us. We found people who are willing to invest on us. I mean, to invest. I mean, to donate to. We are of course a nonprofit. People give to organizations that have missions that transcend, the field. We don't just want to do theater to do plays. We don't want to do a play because, this was done in New York and it's fun. We want to do plays because we believe the theater can transform the world. And
I love that.
but it's not. I 100% believe it. And then we have to find the works that can do that in this community.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us some of the shows that you've done recently?
Right. We did. First show we did was Golem of Havana, which talks about two very Miami local the Jewish community, the Cuban community, the African diaspora, which was those three key elements were part of Golem of Havana. We did a fantastic play with Mexican actors about the rise of fascism called The Special Day. We did a play with a really diverse cast about the American premiere of a show called Terror, about what do you do when you don't agree with an order you've been given, which we did it precisely at the beginning of the Trump administration. We did the multilingual production of Our Town. We did The Elaborate Entrance of Chat Deity, which is 100% actors of color. And plus maybe Todd Durkin, who was fantastic, by the way. But this is a play about identity and about who tells our stories, and that's really the reason we did it. We also it's a play about cultural manipulation, and it's exactly you turn on the TV and that's what you see. You see race. And cultural identity used as bait to stir up, anger in a base of voters, and so, we decided that was a play that we wanted to tell. Our upcoming play is called Queen of Basel. It's a modern adaptation of Strindberg's Miss Julie, which is a really fantastic piece of work, but it's also an incredibly misogynistic piece of work. And so I approached Hilary Bettis. It's one of my favorite playwrights. We worked together as fellows in New York Theater Workshop. And so I told her that I had I wanted to do a multilingual, a bilingual and modern adaptation of Miss Julie. And she said, that's such a misogynistic play. And I said, well, that's precisely why I'm approaching the most feminist playwright I know. And so what she did with the play is just fantastic. And it takes place in Miami. And so, the original took place during the summer solstice, and which is kind of the time of the year, the carnival with no rules, and up is down and down is up. So she decided to set it up during Art Basel. And it's a really beautiful story of gender and class and race. And so she found a way to really talk about all the issues that are concerning to us right now, using the setup of Miss Julie. And with your excuse, I don't know if this is yours, but I'm out of.
That's yours.
That one's
Good.
yours.
Then I need a little bit. I need a little bit to keep
You would
going.
need a break.
Well, that gives us,
Intermission. No.
but that gives us a break, and that is that when you did Chad Deity, that was a joint production with the Oslo
right.
Theater. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about, and is that a paradigm that you think more regional theaters in South Florida should think about? I know that next season DramaWorks and Gable Stage are going to do a joint production.
Yeah.
Talk about that paradigm
I
a
think
little
it's
bit.
fantastic. I think we should be talking to each other, and I think the theaters that have similar mission should find a way to talk to each other. Great thing about Asolo is can you imagine? This is the largest theater in the southeast of the United States. They are they are about $11 or $12 million a year. They are in a city of 300,000 people. Miami-Dade County has 3 million people, and we have nothing close to it. And so that's a theater that I want to be like. I think that our mission is to become, a regional, a big time. I don't care about niches. I don't want to try to find my own niche. I want to be a major regional theater, and I want to talk to everyone, because we are all part of this. I think that, if you go to Miami, part of the thing that it's, you have different areas, and each community might not know about the other community, might, even in their daily routine, might not talk to one another. Well, the theater is where we can be a community. So I'm not, our niche is everyone. And I think that is an important mission. And to answer your question, I think that it's important then to, a Solo Rep is a theater for mainly retired audience, retired, wealthy, retired community. But they also want to do work that it's relevant. So, I got a call from Michael Edward, who's a fantastic, beautiful artist, human being, and he said, I like your mission. Let's have a conversation about what we can do together. And he came and saw one show and loved it, and so we decided to do Chad Deity together, because it was a play that really made sense. He wanted to do it, and he also felt that as I felt, that it was important to do it in Miami and important to do it in 2018. Mm-hmm.
Do you find that your location is advantageous for you, being right in the heart of South Beach, Lincoln Road?
It's a very good question, and we're still figuring out. I think that when people are motivated, they come easily. I think that there is a false perception that it's hard to park, and that it's, which it really isn't. And there's we have parking lots in front of us, next to us. It's not more expensive than going to the Arch in terms of parking. There's a lot of tourists. We have not yet gotten the tourists to come in. We haven't really focused on that group yet. We are not. I mean, we are 80% locals and about 20% seasonal, who are snowbirds. I think that I think Lincoln Road is a fantastic road. I think that the new vision it's having, and the way Lincoln Road is coming back, I'm incredibly excited about that. I think Miami Beach is an amazing city. Mm-hmm. I think that while State of Florida is cutting funding, not only Miami-Dade County and Michael Springs' office are doing a fantastic job of keeping us alive, but Miami Beach, unlike any other city, really is doubling down their investment on the arts, and I am eternally grateful to be in Miami Beach and to know that there is a government that understands the work we do is important and supports it.
What's the history of the Colony Theater?
The Colony Theater was a Paramount Palace. So it played, it opened in 1938. It played all the, or 1936, it played all the big movies of the 40s. And then eventually it became run down. It at some point became a performance center, but it wasn't until 1981 that the city of Miami Beach was giving the theater. And so they did a series of renovations. The last one was 10 years ago. That really created the fly space and the dressing rooms and really turned it into the fantastic jewel it is now. For the last 10 years, it was run by a for-profit company. And after we did Golem of Havana, I approached the city of Miami Beach and I told them, let's work together and let's turn this underused venue into a world-class cultural institution. And they've been brave and supportive. And it's been over a year and a half that we've been managing, and we brought in about 40,000 spectators our first year, which I think it's pretty impressive. And we were able to grow our budget to about 1.5 million, and we keep growing, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled about the future.
Yeah, Michel, you have 3 titles: a writer, director, producer. Is there one title that sort of meets your creative needs the most?
I think I wrote a play or a musical that I'm proud of. I don't know how much of a writer I really am. I think that I wrote that because it was a story I needed to tell, but I don't think I'm very good at I would be a terrible write for hire, guns for hire. I think that that as a director is where I've had most of my training. But what excites me the most is, the idea of being a culture leader and an artistic director. I don't direct. I direct maybe one play a year, and I invite a lot of directors, women, men of color. I mean, I think that I don't understand why a director would direct every play of the season. I think that limits the perspective one can have.
Good.
I don't think that I am the best person to direct every single play we do. That's why I don't. I maybe direct one. This season I'm directing 2, but it will actually turn out to just directing 1 a year, because next season I'm not directing anything until later, and so I feel that that's a way that works for me, for what our mission is.
I think it's refreshing to hear how passionately you speak about theater and your view for theater and the transformative work that theater can do in the community and the world, because we don't hear that often enough. A lot of times, so many theaters are just trying to keep their heads above water, stay afloat and doing whatever, we need to do in order to make that happen. And sometimes I think the artistic vision gets a little muddled in that effort to survive and stay afloat. So it's really, I'd like to commend you for, the fire and the passion that you have about reflecting the community in your work, because we don't really find that a lot, and finding a concentrated effort to put forth that work that reflects the community. So I just wanted to say that to you.
Can you pinpoint a moment in your life when you said, I want theater to be my life?
Wow, it's one of those questions that I will give a disappointing answer. Because I have to really think about it. It's strange. I think that I was always fascinated with storytelling. I think there's something fantastic when we tell a story. I think we've been telling stories before we learned to get a weapon and fight each other. We were telling stories, and I think that idea of storytelling has been very powerful to me. I remember my parents got divorced when I was young, and my aunt came a lot she traveled the world, and she came and told me about all the movies she saw. So I remember her, how excited I was when she came and would tell me about the movies and the story. She would tell me describe the movie she saw, and I would get very excited about that story. And I think that for some reason that became part of the DNA, and I think that there is no medium as real and dangerous and exciting as theater. Theater is really alive, and I think that you can, it's impossible when theater is done great not to have a profound effect in those 300, 420 people who saw it. And you are really, touching the individual in a way that I don't know any medium that can do it.
Can you give people a website address where they can see the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So colony.org is a website of the Colony Theater. It has all the information about Miami New Drama. MiamiNewDrama.org is the website only of the work that we do at Miami New Drama.
We'll put it up so
Good.
that they can
Yeah,
hear as well.
great. And I expect
A box office phone number as well we'll put up. But I know you do a lot of advertising, full-page ads in the Herald. All the other theaters are jealous. I mean, that's a lot of money you're spending. And obviously it must be working because you continue doing that.
Well, print is surprisingly cheap compared to what it was before.
Really?
Yes, but yes, do it big or stay bad. I think we want to be an institution like, like Paris Art Museum, like New World Symphony. I think that we take our cues from the major cultural institutions that we want to aspire to be.
Well, it's working very, very well. Whatever you're doing is working. And we're glad to be a part of it and to help promote it.
Thank you so much.
That's what this is all about. And you'll be remembered from your passion, if nothing else. And we want you to remember us so that you can view us every week. We all have passion. That's one thing I can say. That's why we're here doing what we're doing. And if you want to know what else is happening in theater all over South Florida, just go to FloridaTheaterOnStage.com, and we urge you, go to the theater. Go to the theater. And join us again next week, right here at Spotlight on the Arts.